Welcome to the Game of Life podcast, where we bring you inspiring softball stories, insightful tips from coaches and players, and explore how the game transcends its boundaries to become a metaphor for life. Whether you're a sports enthusiast, a casual fan, or someone just looking for inspiration, you're in for a treat. We'll unravel the tales that go beyond the scoreboard. Discover how perseverance and hard work on the field translates into resilience in your daily challenges. Learn about teamwork, leadership, and the unwavering spirit that fuels success, not just in sports, but in the game of life. Allie, we have a guest tonight. I know the last couple of weeks it's been you and me. We got sick of talking to each other, so we have a guest now.
Thought I'd join in.
We have Brady Harrington. Brady, let's just jump right in. Start talking about yourself, because Allie and I are going to ask questions. The minute you stop talking, we're going to start asking.
Questions going. Okay, awesome. Just started from the beginning. Grew up in Windy Point, New York, so not too far from like the Elmira Horseheads area now. Kind of from there, just a little bit of all over the place, like within New York or a little bit out of the state. Starting with SUNY Broome, I think that was like a great step to just in general, where I wanted to get my life going. What degree I wanted to go for, because I was still up in the air with that. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, so I wanted to see what I wanted to play in college. Kind of from there, I did baseball and basketball, which was very, very enjoyable. Just being local, I didn't know, what was going on, what friends to make, how to go about it. But playing baseball and basketball, just, and going off from your podcast, you naturally make friends from sports. Like, it's very, you don't know how it's going to happen, but just from point A to point B, all of a sudden I have, my closest friends from college sports. So, and then from there, went to SUNY Cortland, got my phys ed degree. SUNY Cortland was another great experience. I always know, someone might know someone that goes to Cortland all the time. And on top of that, just, it's what you learn from there. Just going from SUNY Broome, what prepared me well to get into Cortland, fulfilled pretty well. I was a 2020 grad, so that was a little rough.
Everybody says that.
Yeah, right. Like you say it, everyone's like, oh, I feel bad for you or whatever. But no, same thing. It's a good learning lesson. I didn't know what to expect or what to do from there, but kind of once I wrapped up my student teaching with phys ed, I thought to myself, with baseball, basketball, soccer, and whatever other sports I played and whatever I got involved with, it kind of pieced together well for me. I thought about, wanting to get to the higher level of coaching. So I've been around basketball my whole life. There was one season since I was 6 that I wasn't part of a team at all. And that was during the 2020 year when I was doing my student teaching. I wasn't coaching, wasn't playing, nothing. So I thought to myself, I miss it already. And if I have that natural itch to, be a part of a basketball program still, that's what I want to do. So I kind of took a little bit of a sporadic jump. And so January 2020, I made my way to the state of Maine, a school called Lee Academy. And my mom wasn't too happy about it. She, was pretty surprised by me all of a sudden, coming up with an idea to, get somewhere with coaching. But to start from there, it was a great experience working with high-level players. Within, those guys that I worked with, about 5 or 6 of the guys, from the starting lineup, they all went to the higher levels at the scholarship level. So I wasn't used to that myself, just playing wise. I've never really, I've played with guys at our scholarship level, but I've never truly been able to coach it or train with guys that have been involved with it. So going out there, just, like I said, more life lessons, learning about yourself, being a part of a program, went well out there to, kind of the foot in the door job. Then from there, just every year has been a different track with coaching. And I forgot to mention, I did volunteer coach at Cortland. And that was, I guess, my starter job, and they're great people that brought me in. helped coach for the junior high team while I was in college. So I can't forget to mention those guys. Those guys are great. But yeah, from there I went to the College of St. Rose. So I was now, last year got involved with college now. So I went from prep to college, did my grad assistantship, and got my educational psychology master's degree. And in the mix with that as well, I went back home for a year for the Binghamton Bulldogs. They're a semi-professional ABA program that I was also very excited to work with. So, it was being able to go prep school level, college level, semi-professional level, and I did like a little bit of high school and middle school as well. It was good to get the experience from every single route that I was doing. And then once after St. Rose, things lined up very well, and I had the opportunity now to be in Elmira. So I just got done with my first year. Casey McGraw's the head coach, and just talking with him about the program and what they have going on there, and especially just the campus itself, how beautiful it was. Great people in the athletic department, everything tied together. I wanted to just continue that, and I not only owed it to myself to see how far I can do or how far I can go with coaching, but also, meeting the players as well. We always say they're a great selling point. Like, they're a great group of guys, and working at that kind of mature, higher level is what I wanted to do. So, yeah, I had a great experience first year here. And on top of that, I'm teaching at the local elementary school at Cohen Elementary. So, with my phys ed degree, I'm teaching there now. So it's now just getting used to the area, and finally, from what's about to be happening, like what I'm planning for is that this is going to be my second season coming up. And that'll be my first time really sinking my teeth into a program work-wise. So, every year has been, trying to move up, get to the next spot, get to another program. But I think it, came to a settlement where, the program's heading in the right direction. Everything's good about it. Enjoyed my time. And it's like, let's give it another year and see where I can go with it now. So now we're currently here and getting into summer. So we'll see what's going on from there.
That's awesome. There's so much to unpack in there. There's so much.
I know. I tend to ramble, so I cut myself off a little bit.
That's why I waited for Allie to talk. You go with it. I'll follow.
No, that was awesome. I want to take it back to kind of the beginning before we get into your coaching piece.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you mentioned you started at Broome Community College. Yep. So how important do you think that was for your journey? Because I think especially for athletes, right, like maybe going that community college route doesn't get like the best rep that it should. But to me, like that is an option for a lot of student athletes. So do you want to maybe just talk on that a little bit, like how?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's like two things to that, because you bring up a good point. One, like community college, and also like that was, I'm 20 minutes away from there. So like when you're like a kid, like a senior in high school, you're like, oh, I'm like not going far away anywhere. I'm not going to this, kind of like on paper, the best looking school, like compared to your peers. Broome wasn't my original plan. I was weighing out all my options. As somewhat because of that reason, I just want to kind of get out and kind of explore a little bit. But at the end of the day, I looked at it. Larry Kitten, he's also it's kind of full circle. He was my basketball coach at Broome, and he's also now the assistant coach with us at Elmira. So he's always been with me every step of the way, and getting to know him. He kind of just having good people in your corner, like that kind of sells me as a person. Like, you get to know good people, that it's not just the glitz and glamour of a school or whatever. It's, the experience and how to make good connections. But yeah, going back to the community college route, I just think, especially your freshman and sophomore year, you have so much to figure out as a person. And I'll probably keep saying, game of life lessons. But, I think it was good to kind of stay within my community still. I still got out of the house a lot, got to know like more people, but taking these, like you see like a lot of college freshmen now. There's a lot of, obviously like transfer portal, just in general, like maybe if they're not even an athlete, they go so far out of town, they go out for a year and they're like, oh, like what am I doing here? Like, I think at least going to community college for a year just to know what you want to do. If you're not completely, it's not like a guarantee in your mind what you want to do for a major. I think it's a good route just to do like a liberal arts or give some other major a try. So yeah, like for any of, people going into, their senior years looking for schools like community colleges, I don't regret any decision from going Broome to Cortland. Like I said, it wasn't my very first option, but going to Broome, playing baseball and basketball there, the college classes were great. The people were great. I don't regret it one bit.
But I think you bring up a good point, right? Because when it comes to college, like you got to do what's best for you. And I think there's a lot of noise, like especially when you're an athlete of, oh my gosh, all these people are going to have so many opinions about where I go and all this stuff, right? But I always say, like, how many of them actually check up on you or care about your everyday life?
Exactly.
Like you're the one living with that decision every single day for the next X amount of years. So I think that's a great message. Like,
yeah, and that's actually what we, tell our recruits at Elmira too. It's not the biggest of schools, but very tight community. Like, we have an 8-to-1 student to teacher ratio, and I think stuff like that is very important. There's not going to be a kid in a big lecture hall falling asleep in the back of the classroom, and the teachers and the peers are going to let them go. Like, they're going to, everyone's going to keep tabs on you at schools like that, and I think, kind of future college athletes or students, make sure you really take that into account as one of like your top 3 priorities of choosing school, because, it is very important. And if you kind of get lost in that realm of no one really caring about what you're doing or anything like that, it's definitely a lonely world at times. So,
when you're involved in high school sports, I mean, a lot of kids, not every kid on the team, but a lot of kids are like, oh, I'm going to go play in college. I'm going to go play in college. But at the end of the day, what's the stat? Like 7 or 8% of all high school athletes
actually,
at any level. So you go from kids thinking it's just the next transition, but it's really difficult no matter where you go. So what's your take on going from high school to college? Like, everybody acts like Allie said earlier, like nobody's checking in on you. Like, how's it work from when you go to high school to college? Like, was it what you thought it was? Was it harder? Like,
I think the biggest thing is the freedom, like with the schedule. I thought that was great. Just having, you can't precisely choose like every class you want or like every time, but having that little leeway of, okay, I want to take this class at this time. Like if you get up early in the morning, just get your day done, or, allow people, sleep in a little bit and they start their class at 11 or noon. But I think, the freedom was one thing I kind of overlooked a little bit. And on top of that, it's just the maturity. Like, you're paying to go there. Like I kind of forgot to mention this because I was rambling about my story in the beginning, but I also taught a class at Broome like a couple of years ago. And while I was working with the Binghamton Bulldogs, I taught a phys ed class there, and I told my students, I'm like, listen, this might not be the hardest class you take because you got to take like activity courses, so maybe not all of them want to be there per se, but I told them, like, listen, this might be one of your easier classes, but you're paying to come here. And compared to high school, a lot of kids might like skip out in class, whatever. Like, you're only wasting your own time and your investment in college. So, it's hard to keep that in your mind as a college student. Like, I'm investing in myself, so why am I going to, when I'm actually at the school thinking about stuff like that, because there's so much other things going on. But overall, I think, one, freedom, two, realizing it's an investment in yourself and you have more responsibility. It's a lot more like kind of going like based off that. I actually had my best grades as a college student when I was doing my master's program, which were my hardest classes. And I think I realized, like, because they're harder classes, and it's not like I got like too much smarter per se, but I think it's just once you get older and older, the responsibility and you realizing how important these classes are. I think that's very important. So going from high school into college, it's just, all right, you got to realize where the positive and negative distractions are and kind of like, defer that and make sure, time usage is very important. So.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think too, just like using that freedom and taking advantage of all the opportunities you have when you are in college, like whether it be, like, if you're going to be at something, you might as well give it 100%. Because like a perspective I had when I left is like, how cool was that I was surrounded by like 18,000 people every day on a campus, and I could walk anywhere I wanted, and I could join all these clubs, and I could go get in these top facilities anytime I wanted because I'm an athlete. Like, I think that just kind of like sometimes you think that's normal, and then you leave and you're like, wow, that was actually really cool.
Yeah, and now obviously this goes by like that. Like that's a very quick for whatever amount of views you take. But yeah, no, overall, it's I think the social experiment of it too. Like there's there's a college for everyone. You just gotta really look into it. Like that's really a big thing to hone in on. Like I go back to talking to recruits, like Graham Tellemire. Like we tell them straight up, like Coach McGraw mentions it all the time, like we're not for everyone. And we get that. Like if a recruit says, Coach, Elmira College is just not, it's just not me. And I'm like, okay, I understand. I'm not going to be mad at you. Like maybe you do want to go to a bigger school, and that's fine. Like whatever you want to do, you got to make sure you know what you want. And going back to the community college question, I think that's another reason why it's so important, because you realize what you want in those years, because everyone's so young, it's hard to, they don't even know what they're doing tomorrow. So it's piecing those decisions together. I think it's fun process. You just gotta choose wisely.
Yeah, but to me though, like the fact that you understand that response shows that you're in it for the right reasons. Like you genuinely just want the best for those athletes, and I think that's like something a lot of coaches would not understand. That it'd be like, all right, whatever, like good luck to you. But it's okay, like cool. I hope you
and we say if you need any help, by all means, let us know. Like if we know this coach, yeah, well, I mean maybe not in our conference because we don't want to play.
Yes.
Other than that, like hey, if you need help with anything, let us know. Like it's good to truly care about what these student athletes do, because there's a big decision. So far, for the most part, this is the biggest decision of their lives. So, making sure you help them all along the way is, I think, it's very important. Just being a good person about it.
So from the coaching that you've done and any recruiting that you've done, would you say there's like, what are the top 2 or 3 things like kids going into college or getting recruited should ask themselves and like be able to have a tough conversation? I'm thinking about like what the right school is.
I lost you a little bit. You said top 2 or 3 things for right.
Like what if I'm deciding on what college I want to go to, right? Like what are the top 2 or 3 things you think should be front of mind? Because I think sometimes it's like, I want to go somewhere warm, or that's not.
Heard that a couple times. Yeah. I'll say this: a definite do not, and I learned this a lot from my dad. Is just in general in life, but also choosing a college. Don't go with the flow. Like a lot of kids. I've heard a lot of situations where they're following their friends to the school, like, oh, like my buddy from high school, he's going here, or maybe girlfriend or boyfriend from high school that they want to follow. Like you got to make sure like this is just for you. Like you don't need to try to make your parents happy or make your friends happy or impress anyone. But I mean, number one, well, especially when we're talking to recruits about prioritizing what's most important to them. I mean, the education has to be, in general. What do you want to do? Is like, let's figure that out first. Don't go here just because you want to play basketball here. Go here because, like, for example, our business program's great. If you really want to get into the business side of things, like that's awesome. Like we might be the school for you. Like let's lock that in first. Number 2 would probably be, I mean, yeah, the location is a little bit important just because of comfortability for the kids. Like if you go across the country, you go somewhere, you really got to make sure you like it. And like there's maybe a couple of niches about the area. Like there might be this certain school has very good scenery and more like nature based. Other like I want to go to a big city, I want to explore, I want to check out these kind of things. So location is another thing. And probably the last thing that might be a little bit different, like obviously college is very expensive, so we also need to figure that that aspect. We always respect for family sake what their budget is, or and there's also great scholarships for that, so highly recommend kids looking into scholarships post high school that could help. But yeah, no, I think overall just doing the pros and cons of I think kids, like another thing we tell our recruits is, hey, don't just come here and do a visit and say you want to come here. Like Coach from has, like, we want you to go to 5-6 different schools and make sure Elmira is the place for you. Because if you're very limited to the number, like exposure wise, like of college visits, you might not have, like, you might have missed out on a school that you really enjoy. So.
Brady, I mean, this is great stuff. That's why I'm letting you two just talk. I mean, the two recent college athletes and coaches. I'm old school. But you mentioned earlier you played 3 sports in high school.
Yep.
Do you, when you recruit, do you look for that, or what percent of kids play multiple sports? Because my pet peeve as a high school coach is when I have a player come up to me and say, I'm just going to focus on this sport this year. I'm just going to focus on that sport. And I don't think they ever reach their full potential when you focus on one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just asked like 8 questions in the last 30 seconds. So
no.
You answer it any way you want.
Yeah, I gotcha. So we don't, recruiting wise, I like looking into it a little bit. Because nowadays I feel like a lot of people are starting to keep leaning towards that one sport all year round. For basketball, I mean, AAU is just constant, and the trainings, everything like that. And it's great and all, but personally, I mean, I do appreciate an athlete that plays multiple sports. If that's being biased, it might be, but just even in college, like some of my classes, we talk about burnout. We talk about, I think another important thing, like my cousin, for example, he played hockey and soccer, 2 complete different things. But it worked. I think important, or say if like his third sport was, let's say wrestling, for example, playing those 3 sports, those functioning muscles that you use are all different. So like for injury's sake or for strength sake, like going into hockey, you're using, your hamstrings and quads a lot. Wrestling might be more upper body. So using those functional muscles in all 3 sports, like, I guess physically wise, like you see an athlete, like, okay, they're more well-rounded and they're not maybe, from just playing one sport, that could lead, especially with basketball. I mean, knees and ankles, it's just, complete. Like if you keep playing all year round, I mean, unfortunately, unless you're Mikal Bridges from the Nats in the NBA, like you never get, but taking care of your body and playing one sport, something's going to happen. I mean, whether it's minor or severe, like if you're constantly doing the same thing, continuous sport, and then also going back to the social aspect, I think it's cool to, be a part of different teams, new players, new experiences, new maybe like new travel teams. Yeah, I mean, overall, I highly recommend. If it's good to try it out. I know people, like kids, get pressured into it a lot, but
yeah,
I think it's got to be multiple sports.
I was gonna say too. I feel like it just teaches you how to learn how to have different roles on the teams that you're on. Like if you're only playing the one sport you want to play in college, like you're not gonna be a starter and you're never gonna sit the bench and you're gonna be a leader. Like some of the other sports you play, like maybe you're gonna have a different role, and that's just as valuable to too.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because say if we're recruiting a kid that played basketball, and let's go football, for example.
Yeah.
Say if in basketball, if we're recruiting, I'm assuming he's going to be one of the top players on the team. Say if he has that role, so he knows how to be a leader, he knows the pressure, whatever. Say if he plays football and he's a second string player. So he's now experiencing both of those roles, because we do like to look at that, because when when they come into Elmira as a freshman, they might not, get a whole lot of minutes that first year. So their whole life from start to finish, they've been the star of the basketball team every single year. They're the main guy, and then all of a sudden they go to college, and it's a whole nother world. Like, maybe they do still continue to do well, which, we want to see, but their role might completely change. And I was actually talking to a former coach of mine at AU, his name Tony Lindsay. He's based out of the Binghamton area, and he actually mentioned You know, when talking with these kids, if we have a team and say a kid comes in and we have 4 shooters on the court, and the kid comes in, he thinks he should be a shooter, we don't need that. So you need to also learn, like, it's a good point that you mentioned, Allie. Like, you need to learn when you're coming into the game what the coach expects out of you or what you can bring to the team that they might be lacking. Like, if the team, you know, even depending on what your position is, still doesn't really matter. If the team's lacking in rebounding, you get subbed in. All right, like, hey, I got to go get some rebounds because we're struggling. That can keep me on the court. So, yeah, so that all ties together. Like, if you do play different sports, you might have different roles, which is another great experience mentally.
Because a lot of the girls I coach, especially if they're under like 14 years old, I'll meet them for the first time and be like, so what position do you play? And they'll tell me like first base. I'm like, okay, and they just kind of first base. I'm like, okay. And I kind of explain to them the importance of, you know, like you should be able to play different positions and all this stuff, especially younger, because I think one of the big misconceptions I always laugh at too is like, I'm just going to use softball as an example. Like, there's seniors in high school who get recruited and they're like, oh, well, the starting shortstop graduated last year, so the position's open. No, it's not. There's 4 backups already on the team who are competing for that position.
Yeah,
so
you
gotta play another one, or you're gonna sit left bench for the whole year. So
yeah, no, and it's good for that. It's good for the players to think like, hey, like, we want them as a competitor to think I'm better than all 3 of these players. Like, it's good at least that they think that, like, confidence wise. But you also got to think in the sake for team. Like, with our team, for example, we're very selfless in our opinions to the point where even a new recruit that comes in, if they take minutes from a guy that had a good amount of minutes last year, that just brings more competition, and it's a good thing. It's not, okay, like, you know, Johnny over here, he's starting to outplay me a little bit. I'm not going to talk to him anymore, or we're not going to be as close. Like, off the court or field, like, you need to stay the same. Just continue to be competitive, like, whatever role you're in. You know, you gotta, you know, bring your best game every day, and what comes to that, either way, you're making your team better. So
it's you know, not to sound, it's one of the sayings I hate but I love, but when you say somebody coming in and taking minutes from somebody else, it makes them more competitive. I mean, iron sharpens iron, and if you don't buy into that, then you're just bringing the team down. All of a sudden, you're the one below average, bringing the entire team down.
Yeah.
Everything you guys talked about was awesome. I wanted to get back to my original question. Perspective is such a huge thing. If playing multiple sports, if you've never sat the bench, or if you've never not been the person, right? Or if you've never been a role player, all of a sudden when you get to college, I mean, again, 7 to 8% of all high school athletes play college sports. So except for the maybe elite of the elite, or whatever situation by people graduating, and there's not 4 backups like Allie was saying, it's going to be a situation that if you're not prepared for it, I don't know, you guys are fresher than me. If things don't go your way as a college freshman, is it 50-50 you play? Is it 50-50 you come back next year? Is it 50-50 you transfer? What do you guys think? I don't, because back in my day, that didn't happen.
I think transfer portal is a hot commodity right now, to be honest. But Brady, I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's just becoming more and more popular. It is a fine line because there are some good aspects to the transfer portal, but at the same time, a lot of people say, you know, and these are just different takes from what I've heard or what I've seen. Like, one, the easy way out, you know, you don't play your freshman year. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next. 2, you know, I think one positive thing of the transfer portal, because myself and probably a lot of other coaches, it's very difficult to deal with. But if your experience is truly not good, or just say you want to change your major, or classroom, family purposes, etc., that is one good thing about the transfer portal. That, okay, we get it. It's not because you didn't play. It's not because of this, not because of that. Like, it's, you know, off the court stuff, or just genuinely not a good experience. But other things with it, I mean, yeah, every year, I mean, a lot of teams have team meetings and basically just ask the player, hey, are you coming back next year? And Paul, like you mentioned, that really didn't happen a whole lot like a little while ago. Like now it's just like a common thing saying, okay, like no one's guaranteed to come back. Like you need to, you have a good read on most guys, but someone could catch you off guard with anything. And there's a lot of things to it, but playing time, I guess, is the main thing. And for I talked with Paul about this a little bit, and I'm only going to talk very shortly about it, but I'm trying to start there's a lot of physical training aspects to any sport. Like, I'm assuming there's a lot of like one-on-one with softball, with basketball. That culture is just erupting right now. It's all over the place. But I want to look into the mental side of things. And I think going back to, the original question, having someone, even when you're in high school, to be in your ear about it already, I think is a big thing with that. And I think just having either coaches that have been through the college scene or even, to have a role model and have someone that played in college already and say, hey, listen, like freshman year, there's going to be so many ups and downs. You got to stick with it. Unless you truly do not like the school you're involved with, whatever, like, you're not going to like the coach at times. Nothing's going to be perfect. You're not going to go out and sometimes you're not going to be a high impact player your first year. Like, how can you figure out a situation where you're not going to be that guy that's gone to 5 different schools? Because after a while, you look at, how many AU teams and high school teams does this kid play for, and college teams that he play for. Like after a while, it's a little alarming. Like you need to have, some type of loyalty to the team and not just using the team to keep bouncing to the next spot. So there's a lot to it, and I know a lot of people always talk about the portal, but it's something where I think some parts of it are not the kid's fault. Like they just don't know any better, and they think the grass is greener somewhere else. But when you really like get settled in, and when I said for me, like sinking my teeth in coaching, same thing. Like you try to develop something first and give it your like really a good go at it before officially, okay, it's just not working out, I got to move on.
Well, and I think that kind of goes back to earlier what you said about making sure you kind of go tour a bunch of different schools and talk to a bunch of different coaches, because if you never do that and you think your experience is bad and the grass is greener, like you said, you might have the perspective to know that that's not true, right? And I think one of the biggest red flags for me, and I'm curious your opinion on this, is when kids just continuously blame other people. Like nothing is ever their fault, right? Like no matter what they do, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna vent about somebody else instead of saying, like maybe I didn't do great today and what can I do better? It's, well, if the ref this, then if my coach that, and if my teammate passed me the ball more, and it's just never their fault.
Yeah, I think overall with this, like we always talk about, obviously culture is like one of the biggest buzzwords, but another word is accountability. I mean, accountability is maybe coaches say it a lot, like, hey, you need to be more accountable, but no one actually teaches a kid how to be accountable. Like, you can't just say it and expect them to do it. You got to teach them, how to do it. Like they might not have, whether youth club and going up in high school, they might not have been taught that. A lot of kids at times, like what I saw at the prep school level, especially, I mean, sometimes you just got to fend for yourself because these kids want to get to the next level and they're looking out for themselves. And when something doesn't go their way, there might be a whole lot of, why that's going on. And sometimes that does happen. They're not getting the ball passed to them, or what coaching or the offense isn't working well. But instead of doing that and wasting your time, because what is that going to do? Like figure out your own type of ways to kind of battle through that. And, if you're feeling sorry for yourself or you're just finding, the easy way out, I mean, that's definitely going back to recruiting. I mean, if I see that in a kid just on the road in a high school game, that's a huge, red flag of, all right, this kid, he's finding every way to make it not about himself. Because, it takes, mentally, it takes a lot to just say, hey, I messed that one up, or hey, that's on me. And we one of the players on our team, we really commend him for it because he's like he's a true kind of, what's the word for it, but he's the representation of it, of, it's just a lot of pride of, okay, that's on me, guys, or even if it's not on them, but taking the blame just to, give the team a better morale or chemistry. It's, you definitely look for student athletes like that on and off the court field.
So I'm hearing this, and when we get to not playing your freshman year or the transfer portal, to me, I feel like it's just like a relationship in real life. Like when you first meet somebody, whether it's a best friend or a partner for life, you're all in, you're excited. If you go through the process the right way, like you're supposed to go through the process when you get recruited to college, and you can get through the tough times. But if you just meet somebody and it's superficial, or you're there for the wrong reasons, all of a sudden times get tough, boom, I'm balanced. And unfortunately, I feel like that's what too many kids do in college, or they just don't know the difference because they haven't been trained that way, like we've been talking about. But if you really are vetted into the school and you like it and you're there for the right reasons,
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about it before, it shouldn't be your entire identity. Like, all right, I'm not playing this year, I love the school, what am I going to do next year to get better? And
Mm-hmm.
we just talked about it, but too many people don't do that.
Yeah, and it ties back to why athletics are so important for daily life, like once you graduate, because something's not going well with your job, or you thank a principal or a boss or anything like that, like if you're a teacher at school, whatever. Like I just thought that because I'm a teacher of mine, but any boss or coworker, and one little thing goes wrong, all right, what do? You just go to the next job? I think starting with athletics, work on that accountability and loyalty to what you do. And, it all ties together somehow, but stuff like that, I think it's very important to teach younger athletes to, if they get a good perspective, being an athlete going into the real world, that already gives them a bonus of, all right, I know what it takes to be a part of a team. Now you're just a part of a different team, really. And it's a different aspect with, work-life activity.
And with you being a coach now, how instrumental do you think like that role is, especially for young athletes, right? Because I feel like sometimes coaches don't realize the impact that they actually have on the student athletes that they're coaching. So I'm interested from you, just like your perspective on that.
Yeah. We do definitely, like with our teams or the teams I've had in the past, I think it's very important to have individual player meetings. I know we have it with Elmira, and I also do it with other schools. Everyone has their own philosophy on how often they want to do it, but I think sitting down and talking with the players about how important what they're doing right now is going to affect them 5, 10, 15 years from now. Continuing to implement that in their minds, I think, is very important, because the coaches that I admire the most are, yes, they want to win. They're say they have a lot of accolades, whatever, but the coaches that are also, even when they don't have the players, are truly, invested and want to know what their players are now doing with their lives. Because obviously, the ball's going to stop bouncing sooner than later, or, gonna not playing softball anymore, whatever.
Yeah.
So it all ties back together of, when you set foot on campus and when you're done here, what did we do to impact you as a person overall? Like, yes, we want to win as many games as possible. We want to be competitive. We want to have as much success as possible, but you have to look at the bigger picture. Like, the sun's going to shine another day, no matter if you win or lose. Like, how can we, get you to the next step after you're done with us and put you in the best position? So I think overall, like, I hope coaches don't lose that insight, because it's very easy to. I've done it before. Of just like competition, it gets to you. I mean, just that addiction to win, 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 or do your best on the court, on the field, but
Yeah.
you got to take a step back. Like, okay, are we doing it the right way? Are we, are we going about this in a way where, we're having the best experience possible, and also this is going to give us a positive impact in the future.
And I almost think that the main level of issue with that is at the youth level. Like, I see a lot of coaches sometimes who are all about winning and all about this stuff, and like, you could argue that that's such a transformative time in those athletes' life that you're teaching things that like subconsciously don't even know that they're learning. So if you're those traits that like, this is only about the sport you're playing and all I care about is you winning, and you can be selfish and you can blame other people, like, that's going to affect them when they go through high school and when they go through college. So I think just like youth coaches got to know too how much power they have.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't even recognize that.
Yeah, I think the foundation, really, it's very important. Like, I was blessed to have very good youth, like all sports, very good youth club coaches, and they did the same thing. Like, they were intense at times, but they weren't too intense where it's like, hey, like at the end of the day, it's a youth club game. I mean, you're not gonna playing for the youth club championship or anything like that. I mean, especially, I know you guys talked about parents before on this podcast, but parents do need to look at it in a way where, hey, like, we gotta really put this in perspective. Like, is this going to impact our lives on how they're doing today, or it's really not worth all the fuss and the fight. And yeah, youth club is is very overlooked because they sometimes have to get like a volunteer that has the time to do it. I think it's also important. Like, I know it's not really too possible, but it'd be nice if like school districts could actually, part-time hire coaches or anyone to, be a part of that system, because it starts from start to finish. And I remember, Paul, you mentioned before, like, being a JV coach and, working with the varsity program, you need to take that into account. Like, I think all varsity coaches should be in any type of way involved in the youth club program, because if they're planning on investing with the program, that, going down the road, like, that's what they're looking at right there. So if you started from there, I always commend them for it. And like, at Windy Point, I think all of our youth club sports are very good. I think our field hockey program, they're incredible. I don't know how much you guys know about them, but it starts right from there. Like, they've won, I want to say 7 out of the last 10 years state championships. I could be a little wrong with the numbers, but people look at, okay, where's the success come from? Like, they're like number 1 in the country at one point. It starts with a group growing up together, good coaches, great foundation, and comparing, kind of going to my basketball mind a little bit, AAU with youth club. Like, are they learning the right things? Or are they just going out there and playing, and it's just very intense games but not learning anything? Like, starting with the fundamentals and mentally preparing, like, working your way up.
So we lose sight of that. I was going to ask you this question. This is a great segue. So, starting with youth sports, you mentioned this in the beginning of the podcast, and I put a box around it. You said scholarship level. Like, so in your mind, let's whether it's field hockey at Whitney Point or softball at Horseheads or basketball in Virginia, whatever, like, what's a scholarship athlete in your mind, regardless of the sport, regardless of the level? Like, what characteristics does
like,
a scholarship
what characteristics? I'll go mentally first, and this can be for any sport. I think some of the qualities are already talked about, but I mentioned this before. My dad has a good friend who, when I was a younger kid, because I'm not a scholarship athlete myself, but it's kind of weird to say it, but in my youth days, I was kind of like taught how to lose. And I know it sounds crazy a little bit, but I think a great quality that could possibly make you a scholarship athlete is, obviously the physical traits, very good athlete, right, et cetera. But mentally, how do you handle losing? Like, I think solid scholarship level athletes, they're very good about, like, they have very good, like, resiliency with losing or playing time or anything going their way. It's a consistent, what the goal is. and being a scholarship level athlete, like working with those guys, like, yes, they're very gifted, very talented, but also, mentally that aspect of it. And also just like, any type of work ethic needs to be developed from start to finish on, this is my drive, this is my goal. And we tell high school players this: make sure you focus on the task at hand. They say if a kid is he's already holding any type of college offer, it stinks in regards to some of them their minds are already set on next season. Like if, say like when Allie was a senior and say, very early, like she was going to Binghamton already planned and she mentally checked out with her high school team. That's another problem with those athletes, is because they're already committed to that school and they're like, oh, like high school doesn't matter anymore or whatever. Like I think the higher, like the quality, like, Division I, Division II scholarship players, like they're focused on, what's in front of them and they're trying to do it to the best of their ability. And I think one other is not playing down to any type of competition, or, they want to get beat or play someone that's a lot better than them. They want that. Either they keep their own standard or they try to raise the bar, no matter what. But and it's weird because, with Elmira, obviously, like, we're Division III level. So, say half our players, for example, we're trying to get a scholarship. And we understand that, like, it's a great opportunity, say, if you get a full ride, or you just being a part of a Division I, Division II team. Like we've talked about this before early in the podcast. Like kids want to show to their peers and other people, hey, look at me. I'm going to this school. But is that experience the best? Like, even if you do have maybe Division IIs or Division I's, like, is that what's best for you? Or, should you be a part of that program? So it's, a whole lot of things. I know I ramble a little bit, but
no, it's great. And I gotta interrupt quick. I technically shouldn't have said scholarship level. I should have said college level, because you
I thought you said just Division I, Division II.
No, but you answered it brilliantly. Like, you can get academic aid, you can get you could be preferred walk-on, you could be anything. I feel like you're so blessed if you're part of that 7-8% that plays a college sport. I say scholarship level, but at college level, like interchangeable.
Oh, so yeah, college in general. Yeah.
So no. You answered it great, because even kids that come to Elmira College, if you have great grades, if you have this scholarship, you have this thing going, all of a sudden there's some money flowing in different avenues. So yeah, I probably should have been more clear with that, but
no,
you answered it great. Go ahead, Allie.
Going off those two, Brady, I think those were great. And one more I want to hear your feedback on is something I've noticed is like those high quality college players, like they just have the ability to bring other people with them. Like whether it be a local leader, like they're just so competitive and compete so much, the people around them are just forced to level up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's always really cool to watch. So I'm sure you've had individuals like that on your teams, or like maybe that you played with growing up. And I just think that's something that's really cool to watch too.
Yeah, I don't get it wrong. I love the vocal leaders, like someone, there needs to be someone that steps up and plays that role. But I love the people that some that might not even say a word, or they barely say anything, and just for what they do and just lead by example is very important. Like, just because you're considered a leader, that doesn't mean you have to be the most vocal or the loudest or anything like that. Like, if you're being a leader is, like a big quality to it is, by example, what are you showing to your teammates that they should do as well? And, just showing that, hard work or, extra hours on the field or the gym, and just slowly seeing, like, as a coach, like seeing guys like levitate over to those 1 or 2, 3, whatever people. And unfortunately, sometimes it's a negative as well. Like some guys or girls that, they're even if they're like trying to do that, or like trying to have people follow them and what they're doing, but they might not set the correct example. So you got to make sure if you consider yourself in that leadership role by example or vocally, you got to make sure your message is coming off right way, because obviously it's a lot of pressure, no matter what level, but it's always good, perspective wise, you gotta make sure you're honing that in and know what's best for the team.
Yeah, because that's a privilege whenever someone's looking to you. So
yeah, and just seeing people follow that route. You don't have to be a captain either to be a leader example. It doesn't matter who you are. Like if you're the 13th person on the bench on the basketball team, and say if we're running, a couple down backs, whatever, send the tone of trying to be the first every time, and all of a sudden you get a couple more people. It's contagious. Like I always say this to a lot of people, like being contagious is not always a bad thing. Like if I were to call Paul right now, like, hey Paul, you're contagious. Like most of the time people are like, hey, like, well, why would you say that? But like I remember like one player that I worked with specifically for the Bulldogs. I told him before, I'm like, dude, you're very contagious, like a very contagious player. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, listen, like you do a couple things you don't even realize that are like positively contagious to the team. Like just whatever, whether it's making a play or first one to hustle back, or his energy that he brought like to the crowd and to the team. That's positive, contagious. That's not good grammar, I don't think, but like just I think it's another big word in any athletics or even in regular life. If you're positively contagious, then that could impact anything around you.
Hey, so I want to end it with this. What's next? I mean, maybe you're going to coach basketball your whole life. You touch base on it real quick. What are you working on, and how can people contact Brady Harrington?
Yeah, so it's still in the works right now. We'll see where it brings me, but as of now, obviously, coaching and teaching for next year, it's going to be awesome. Just working physical education and also still being able to be a college coach. That's why 5 years ago I wrote down, like I have my own little man diary. I wrote down myself 5 years from now I want to be a teacher and a higher level coach. So I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now. And then on top of that, like I said, I got my master's degree in educational psychology. I've always had like I've been talking about mental aspects of sports. I've always been very interested in sports psychology. I remember the class at Broome, and ever since then, just as a person, like in general, I didn't realize how important it was. Then all of a sudden, snowball effect, now mental health coming to play, more and more popular. Like famous athletes now are stepping up and with their platform mentioning how it's very acceptable, and as it should be. It should have been all along. So what I want to do, so as of now, kind of like my own like practice type of deal. It's called PUMP. So like PUMP, like a little like acronym for something. That's prepare ultimate mental performance. And hopefully like start up a podcast with that as well. Just to kind of, obviously the social media platform's huge. So try to get out there, to other athletes. But yeah, basically talk about just have, anyone that's involved, like, even like podcasts like this, and also, like other coaches and players that have been through it before. But overall, like in my mind, like when I was in high school, I wish I had like for my label, it'd be considered a mental performance coach. But it could be, mental performance coach, sports counselor, sports psychologist, which is higher level, like more licensing. But having that third party person, like I said, the one-on-one training world, that culture is, a very high level business right now in athletics. And I think it's doing a great job as long as those coaches are, giving those athletes game-like situations and not glitz and glamour, highlight film, cool looking stuff that it's not going to work in a game. But mentally working with athletes, say once a week. So what I want to do is hopefully try to build like a clientele base where, from say middle school level to college level, say even if it's, I think what people think is that, like, say if I were to have Allie as one of my clients, it doesn't mean Allie is down in the dumps right now and not doing well with her athletic career. It could be just she might even be having a great season mentally and physically, and it's just to talk about things to keep her at that level. But obviously, at the same time, an athlete with low confidence, an athlete, obviously the pressures, Paul and I, we talked about before, the pressures of any level of athletics are, they range pretty well in how you handle them. I think just from what I've seen so far, I would just like to help any athlete, male, female, any sport in general. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, what sport, just to talk about, I'm not like their specific coach. I'm not their parent. I'm not their sibling. I just want to be someone that gives them my intake before they get to their college decisions, for example, before they get to this and that, or the big game. Like, how can I help you prepare for these situations so you're ready for them? And I think just overall, it's starting to grow more and more. I've been talking to a lot of great psychologists, other mental performance coaches and coaches. But just to give an athlete, that time of just a one-on-one conversation, completely confidential. How can I help you? You talk, I'll listen, then let's figure out like a structured curriculum-based plan in order to, physically is important on the court and field, but also mentally you need to be ready, like any type of things. I can talk about this all day, but there's a lot of aspects to it that would like to help any level athlete to get to where they want to go.
Well, I love that. That's awesome. I feel like you'll make a very big difference. So
Yeah, I think it's a good field for it. It'll continue to.
And
I think that's
go
one of
ahead.
those things. I was just gonna say, I feel like sports psychology is one of those things. It's like that's like not buying a toolbox until something breaks. Like, that's very reactive. Like, you can't just think of
I might
yourself.
copyright that one right there.
Yeah,
There you go.
everybody
Take
has
it.
one, and then you use it when you need it. Like, you need to be aware of that stuff and like trained in it, so that when you maybe start to slip, like you have this
Yes.
figure out a way to. So I
Yeah,
like
because you never know. You could be top for your whole high school career, then one little slip up, like senior year, that could, what do I do now?
Right.
Like, I never prepared for this before. I've always had it good, and injuries are another thing too that athlete live that can mentally it takes a lot out of them. So just any aspect really, like you said, it could be, this athlete's all the way up here and they're doing great. All right, let's keep you there. And if something does not go your way, how do we stay, let's not go all the way down here. Let's, stay where you're at, or, like I said, vice versa. So then I just love just stuff like this too. Just talking,
So I mean, we've been talking for like an hour, and I just flew by.
Yeah,
I know. So we're gonna end with that, Brady. I think we decided, as we grow this podcast and as you grow your career, we're gonna come on next time and just talk about the mental side of things.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Once I get it more developed, I gotta make sure I'm well prepared, but at least I want to give like a nice little rough draft of the idea of it. Now just piece the logistics together of it. But I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to it. I think a lot of people could use it, and hopefully I can give them my insight on it.
Well, I think you're on your way.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hope.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for coming on tonight.
Yeah, no, I was looking forward to it. It was awesome.
Hey, quick, I almost forgot again. I asked you didn't answer. I'm gonna ask you again. Where can people find you on social media?
Oh, so social media. So either Twitter or Instagram, Coach BH10. I gotta remember it BH10, or emails on the website for Elmira as well. Okay. That's what I'm gonna most likely do for contacting purposes. Like, you could do X or Instagram DMing, but emailing as well to at least maybe start some type of, and I'll have more that I can post on there. But yeah, Coach BH10 right on there. Anything involved with it, would love to help out with that.
Awesome.
Thanks, Brady.
Thank you so much.
Hey, we'll talk soon for sure. I'm sure this isn't the last conversation we have.
Yeah, no, that was fun. I can, like I said, I can talk all day.
Well, and so can the two of us. So
Yeah.
I think it's an hour is a good cap. Hey, have a good night, Brady.
All right, guys. Thanks again.
Yeah.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.